set to see more unsubstantiated allegations in the British media about Prince Andrew and his sexual involvement with an underage girl procured by his billionaire pal Jeffrey Epstein. After initial reticence, Buckingham Palace eventually denied the allegations. But what should the palace do with a prince who remained friends with a convicted paedophile after his release from prison? Her Majesty's former press secretary and author of On Duty with the Queen, Dickie Arbiter, is back with us again. Welcome back.
Thank you,
Dickie, to the show. So why has the palace felt the need to even comment about the allegations?
Well, the allegations were very serious, and you have to say something. It's no good burying your head in the sand and saying nothing. That was the sort of thing that happened in the past. These are serious allegations about the Duke of York allegedly having sex with an underage teenager, which is absolute nonsense. I mean, you know, he's does some silly things, but he wouldn't be that silly. And I think these allegations came about as a result of his association with Jeffrey Epstein and nothing more.
So you would have advised the same as the current spin doctors of the palace?
Well, we don't like to call them spin doctors, but yeah, I would have advised the same. I would probably come out a bit sooner, rather than be prompted and hassled by the newspapers. That as soon as you get wind of something, then you let everybody know that there is no truth in these allegations.
But it did seem odd. I mean, our head of state, and initially no comment. Then you sort of get it dragged out. I mean, you can't remember. This is basically unprecedented.
It is unprecedented. I think the problem is that they might well have been prepared, but they certainly wouldn't say something until they've taken legal advice, which they obviously did. And the legal advisors had spoken to the Duke of York to get substantial guarantees that he was not involved, and it was only on that basis that they would tick the box and tell the palace to go ahead. So there's a bit of time in order to get these things into motion, but they did it, and good on them.
Because the response seemed very legal, didn't it, when it came to whether the Queen had met the alleged sex slave Virginia Roberts, because they didn't say, no, the Queen hadn't met her. They went, there's no record of her meeting her.
Well, that's the way they did it. I mean, this was something that was put out by the father, by Sky Roberts, and 2 days later he backtracked, got it wrong. And when you get little things wrong, you wonder whether the big things are wrong as well. There's certainly been no complaint to Scotland Yard, which puts a big question mark over whether this actually happened in the first place.
Yeah, but you were a journalist before you were press secretary to the Queen, and a journalist knows that if they say there's no record of it, that usually means that's not a denial.
Well, when it's people meeting the Queen at Buckingham Palace or Windsor Castle or wherever, there is always a record, because everybody who meets the Queen is put down in a book as having met her, so they will know whether somebody has met or not. Certainly not out of the
you worked with Princess Diana, and we know from her diaries that people came through the back door of the palace.
Yeah, but not, I'm not talking about the Queen on a walkabout. I'm talking about in the building, whether it's Buckingham Palace, Windsor Castle, Sandringham, Balmoral, or wherever she is. There will be a record as to whether she has met an individual. There is no record, and that's the way they put it. There's no record.
You see, some celebrities, corporations might be looking at this and thinking, we'd have slapped a super injunction on it so that the British people wouldn't even know that we'd have gagged the press from covering the story. Why do you think that doesn't happen? And did it happen in your time?
No, it's very difficult to slap a super injunction, because while the injunction might work in the UK, it doesn't work elsewhere.
There wasn't really any chance that Prince Andrew was going to be extradited anyway, according to the plea bargain, as far as we understand, as regarding his billionaire friend. So why the need to deny it? I mean, they could have kept quiet, because there's no reason that he would ever have been extradited to the US.
You know, you say there was no record of plea bargaining. As far as all the reports that are coming out, he was not included in any list in plea bargaining. And what Ms. Roberts is doing is getting hold of the justice system to find out why she wasn't consulted and what the terms of the deal were. It's just the fact that Andrew has got caught in the crossfire of it all. No good ignoring it. If these allegations come out, you've got to say something.
What is it about Prince Andrew and his friends with... Certainly he's been associated with pretty dodgy regimes. You were last on this show talking about how the royals are used by governments as trade envoys with some regimes. I think you mentioned Indonesia under Suharto. Is Prince Andrew a victim here, used by governments to talk with people like Ilayev of Azerbaijan? Because there he is with him. I don't know whether the government told him to hang out with this billionaire convict.
Well, the government wouldn't have told him to hang out, but the thing is that he did have a job as heading up British Trade International as an ambassador. His job was to go out to various countries in the world where the government sent him, not his choice. and to drum up business.
And then they sacked him.
Well, they sacked him for a very good reason, because he was seen with Jeffrey Epstein in 2011 in Central Park and photographed after the man had come out of jail having served 13 months of an 18-month sentence. Not very good. It's not good PR to be seen photographed with somebody who's a registered sex offender.
Do you think the Queen would have advised Andrew not to hang out with this billionaire convict?
Well, you know, you can tell somebody that not a good idea to do it, but you're only as good as the advice that's being taken. And how do you tell a 40-something you shouldn't do that? I mean, a 40-something will turn around to the mum and dad and say, well, you know, my decision.
Sure, but I suppose the dangers with Prince Andrew is that he's on the record as arguing that inquiries into Saudi Arabian arms deals were wrong. He was criticising the Guardian newspaper about even releases from WikiLeaks. And, I mean, how far can he go into this obviously political, financial world, hang out with these sorts of people without anyone being able to just stop him, as it were?
Well, it's a very difficult one, because if you're acting on behalf of the British government, they tell you where to go, and you've got to go. You can't say, no, I'm not doing it.
Yeah, but then not have drinks with them later on in your book. You mentioned that Princess Diana and Prince Charles, I mean, they did the job, but then they went out of their way to do humanitarian things that weren't on the normal schedule. This seems to be a case of people getting too involved in the financial element.
I think the biggest problem with Andrew, he was too easily wooed and got carried along in the draft of flattery. These guys, they flatter, they know how to flatter, and if you've got a member of the British royal family, they're going to flatter in order to, you know, be part of that inner circle. In fact, they're not part of the inner circle, it's neither here nor there, but they think because they've got a member of the royal family there that they're quids in.
And what would you advise him now?
Well, I'd advise him to sort of pick and choose your friends. There's an old saying, tell me who your friends are and I'll tell you who you are. And quite frankly, he hasn't been very good at picking his friends. He now needs to step back, take stock of his life, and start all over again.
Of course, there is actually, just this one last question, the chance that it has been offered in the press, again speculation, that there may be blackmail tapes and so on, which is why poor Prince Andrew, in effect, had to kind of remain friends with this man.
Well, we don't know it. I mean, it's all maybe, it's all ifs and buts, it's all speculation. At the moment, we've got to look at it for what it is, and what it is at the moment is a lady by the name of Virginia Roberts making allegations, pointing the finger at the Duke of York, that he had underage sex with her. Buckingham Palace have come out very strongly, and they wouldn't have come out so strongly without cast iron guarantees, A, from the Duke of York, and the tick in the box from the legals.
Dickie Arbiter, as always, thanks again.
Thank you.